Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment we will start our Internet Governance Forum 2024. Please take your seats in the conference room. Thank you and see you there.
zapraszamy Państwa do...
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in a moment. We would like to start our event.
Zapraszamy Państwa do sali konferencyjnej.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us at the conference room. In just a moment, we will start the very first opening session.
Szanowni Państwo, już za chwilę rozpocznie.
In about a minute, we would like to start with the opening session, opening our IGF Poland 2024 event. So make sure that you take a seat at the conference room. Thank you.
Szanowni Państwo, szczyt cyfrowy.
Ladies and gentlemen, IGF will be opened by Minister for Digital Affairs, Mr. Krzysztof Gawkowski. Sir, over to you.
Dzień dobry.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What an important day it is. After all, the responsibility for the internet is something that we share. It's our common cause, so it's great to have you here in Warsaw, and I have a great honor to open this digital summit, IGF Poland 2024. I'd like to welcome all the experts and the representatives of local governments and ministries, of universities, think tanks, NGOs, all of you who are interested in what will be happening here, all of you that came to Warsaw, and all of you following us online. The Internet Governance Forum is an initiative that has a long history. This is by the United Nations and involves many other countries who, in a kind of grassroots perspective, want to talk about the internet, its openness, its integrity, and processes, and finally, how technology impacts the life of human beings, and how information and access have become our responsibility for making sure it's secure. Over the last 10 years of the forum marked a true evolution. It became it's no longer just a global initiative. Right now, these are national and regional initiatives. They focus on making sure that this dialogue is easier and to support cooperation on internet policies and responsibility for the community that creates the internet. IGF, for sure, is a forum where we can discuss in a responsible fashion. Although normally no binding decisions are taken here at this forum, because this decision will be taken ultimately by states and institutions, and yet we come here to share knowledge. IGF is a platform where you can exchange certain diagnoses, but also perspectives for the future. It's a place for networking that gives you a sense of being close, for different stakeholders representing different areas. Digital technologies do change the reality thanks to breakthrough technologies and thanks to the fact that more and more people can openly use the internet and data. And the data is available more and more pervasively. So this is about communication, information, and building joint independencies. As a result, it's an opportunity to streamline legislation, to understand threats better, and to use the opportunities looming out there. This year's IGF is quite different from previous editions of this event. Poland will take up presidency in the Council of the EU starting from next year. So we will play an important role in shaping digital policies in the EU with respect to responsibility and the framework. For us, it's a huge responsibility and a great opportunity at the same time. Therefore, during today's event, we would like to focus on Polish priorities with respect to the responsibility for the state. I'd like to welcome a very special person that in my ministry looks after that area and for months has been working on it. This is Undersecretary of State Rafał Rosiński. I would like to use this opportunity also to thank the program board of IGF for involving us in the works and for being engaged very much in the works on the agenda and the topics that will be discussed. Those that we have planned, but also those that, well, hopefully inspired by this day, will also shape the conversations and the direction for the upcoming 6 months. For the Polish presidency, digital affairs are of huge importance, especially with respect to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity refers both to information, systems, and it's about seeking potential new funds. Cybersecurity these days is not just a slogan. It's not only about maintaining proper network infrastructure, it's also about solving problems. So we need to make the public aware about this. Therefore, during the presidency, we will make sure to create a European cybersecurity fund with billions of euros that will be allocated for joint looking after Cyber Shield in Europe. Cyber Shield is indispensable so that we can take the responsibility for the state and for citizens and for businesses. But in the end, it's the citizen that can be most vulnerable. If you have no access to water, energy, or electricity, you can't barely function, because this is also about logistics, it's about healthcare, and these areas can be threatened if we fail to assure that we have proper framework of cybersecurity. During our presidency, we will focus a lot about communication tools, about digital services, and about large-scale incidents, including how we can protect human rights also in the internet. We want to make this discussion in a responsible way, but also we want to make sure that we knock to the door of the EU saying Poland wants to have a leading role in digital affairs, because we can do it, and we do. We want this narrative of Poland creating and looking for its permanent place in leadership in digitization is not just fragmented, but rather refers to the entirety of all processes. We can be proud of our mObywatel service, and we can be proud of our talents, network designers, developers, IT personnel, and all the employees that work in the ICT area. We know for sure that given the technological resources, we will need more and more such talents. Only in Poland, 150,000 of people are missing. We need so many talents in the ICT sector. So digital competence will be of huge importance. We need to develop digital skills and also make sure that we have proper gender parity. After all, building our digital strategy means that we need to make sure we have good gender parity. And at the end of the day, last but not least, I'd like to stress the following. Poland is going to invest in breakthrough investments in technologies, AI, quantum computers, training engineers to program quantum computers. After all, quantum computers is one area. We want to develop them. But on the other hand, we need to make sure that we can program them. Only then can we become leaders. So these will be indispensable in how we see the future. Hence, talking about the internet, and I want also to talk about cybersecurity, AI, and this also involves to information policies, combating fake news and disinformation. I want to make sure that you know that today's cooperation between experts from Poland that are present here will definitely translate into our strong position on the global IGF that will take place in Riyadh. And I'm going to attend this summit where I will present very strongly that it's not just that Poland can shout out loud in Poland, but can't be very present and vocal in other countries. That's no longer so. We do things here, and we want to go there and give testimony that that's what we want to do during our presidency. This is how we see digitization policy. We want Poland to be an important player. So my great request to you, ladies and gentlemen, when you will be talking today, don't shy away from new ideas. Notify what you think should be a priority. Stipulate if you see any errors. Have the courage to say what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years' time. After all, in just a couple of weeks' time, in June, we will have consultation on digital strategy of Poland. Please make sure you attend this event. This will be just before the global IGF. So the conclusions from these two events will be presented at the Global Forum. Joining our forces, we can achieve much more. I hope today's event will be a step forward so that we can make sure that the Internet of the future is safer and more sustainable. And hopefully all the speakers today will make sure that they do it so that Poland can have a larger contribution. Thank you very much, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. And now, Jowita Michalska will take the floor, founder of Digital University, member of the program board at IGF Poland 2024. Over to you, madam. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Well, actually, I have a difficulty standing here at the lectern. Could you change my microphone, maybe? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe let me say in the beginning that I just came back from Brussels. And what I really like is that now we talk about some particular topics. Something has changed, especially here when it comes to the AI. I deal with education, with digital skills, and we no longer hear just stories like AI will take your job, but someone using AI will. We know that in many cases this is not true. So I would like to briefly draw your attention to several important points that I know will definitely be thematized, because I am a member of the board and I know that these topics have been submitted. So this is great that we talk about details, that we no longer just say, okay, so cybersecurity, threats related to deep fakes or fake news or opportunities with the AI, but rather we talk about more detailed topics. 21,000 AI tools. This is the number according to the statistics that we have. That means we can automate as many as 15,000 different tasks. And yet, when Digital University Foundation moves out of Warsaw and asks about these tools, just some 30% of people do, especially if you talk to teachers and to small municipalities where no more than 50,000 people live. So this shows how much work we have there. I really hope that the discussions that will be held today will change their reality, not only here in Warsaw or there in Brussels, but also in those small towns. Now again, AI. This year will be quite a breakthrough one with AI agents emerging. That means the labor market will be in threat. Johnson Huan in Japan last week said that NVIDIA itself is going to launch in 2025 100 million AI agents, and they have 30,000 employees. So there will be more AI agents than physical employees. That requires proper regulations. That requires proper solutions for the labor market. And for education, we need to start implementing these topics, starting from the primary school. Prime Minister mentioned that we need to have new engineers. That means we need to start motivating young people to go in that direction. If we want to have more diversity, we need to make sure that women will take part in such programs as well. We want to create an environment that will be favorable also to women. Every year, just as many as 500 would like to take part in such programs, and we are able to enroll only 100 because we lack of funding. I am a practitioner, so my great hope is that you are also practitioners. So I do hope these IGF discussions we will have today will turn into particular projects, and these projects will be implemented soon so that we can take pride in being owners, not of ideas, but also of some concrete achievements. And finally, let me say this. The year 2025 will be the year where we will have more and more responsibility for technologies. That means we need to make sure that AI implemented is ethical. Implemented, not just discussed. Transparency of algorithms. This is something that is ignored these days. And algorithms are ever faster. Also, they require less energy in some cases. Frequently, we have no idea why certain decisions are taken, because it's like a huge black box. The sooner they develop, the more problematic it becomes for us. We need true solutions to protect the labor market without just saying, oh, things will be okay. 50% of tools can be automated. And more frequently, AI will be a co-decision maker, not the ultimate decision maker. That's the point. And we are coming back here to advancing digital skills. So my wish to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that you have a very fruitful discussion, and that each one of you present here at the back of your head will remember what is the cause, what is the purpose of this event, not just to talk, but rather we really seek concrete solutions. Because if you go out, look at today's rainy day, the technologies are out there. We need to start utilizing them in such a way that it can truly improve the quality of our lives, so that we are not like an ATM machine just paying big techs for the use of the resources. That's it from me. Thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful discussion.
O wygłoszenie
Another speaker will deliver his speech. It is Mr. Krzysztof Silicki, Director for Strategic Development of Cybersecurity at NASK, member of the Governing Board of the European Cybersecurity Agency, and NISA, the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is obvious for all of us that this Internet Governance Forum is a very important initiative. It's a great initiative. It's a great opportunity to have cooperation and develop certain specific solutions answering challenges put in front of us by this digital world. Digital world, internet is at the same local and global challenge. This challenge is difficult to face. Poland has lots to boast about, and Poland should present all it has already done to the whole world. And soon Poland is going to hold the presidency of the Council of the European Union. It is a great honor, but also a great opportunity to present our point of view, our things that we have learned, and our conclusions. For many years, I represented our country in the ENISA organization, and I know that our activities in the European Union are quite often not courageous enough compared to the challenges we have. Cybersecurity is the topic I work on for many years so far. I am very happy that it is one of the priorities within our presidency. It is also our everyday task. We raise the level of our achievements, and we want all the cyber services to operate well on everyday basis. At the same time, there are entities that we oblige to achieve certain level of operations, and we cannot impose regulations which will slow down innovations or discourage entities operating on the market and in the digital space to undertake certain activities. A forum like this offers great opportunity to speak up, to touch on certain solutions. There are many examples of such solutions. For example, we are going to have discussion concerning mechanisms of digital services. For example, trusted whistleblower entities. At the same time, internet and digital space offer us great opportunities and it facilitates our life. But on the other hand, we need balance. We need to know how to protect internet user against all its threats. We have already touched on artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is also a great opportunity, but the process of its development is very dynamic right now. It has already started to create certain ethical challenges in the cybersecurity space. In other words, algorithms can help us in every domain, also in security field. However, at the same time, they create a completely new level of threats. Those threats are present worldwide, and they haven't been addressed worldwide yet. We need certain concrete actions to be taken here. It has already been mentioned that there is a challenge concerning disinformation. Right now, disinformation is intertwined with cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, and it becomes an imminent feature of all the systemic approach to those issues. We have to be aware that we live in times when we talk about cybersecurity, we also think about this armed conflict which is developing next to our border. These are all hybrid threats. We also have to be aware that Poland has double role here. First of all, we successfully implement solutions which protect us against all the threats concerning cyber attacks and disinformation in this internet space. And second of all, our duty is to show certain examples to follow and to speak up about our situation abroad. We also should touch on what should be done. The further we are from our country, the less our problems feel tangible. Of course, RGF Forum is not only space for discussing challenges or issues. It is also a space where we can discuss certain regulatory solutions. In the European Union, we have so many regulations that we quite often talk about a regulations tsunami. It is a great challenge to find solution and find a way for regulations to not to hinder innovation, to support the values that are important in democratic countries in the European Union, and at the same time, regulations should make internet user feel safe and be secure. I keep my fingers crossed for Poland's voice during this Internet Governance Forum and during other world-known forums as well. I know that Polish voice is valuable because we have good ideas and we may contribute to developing solutions on the global scale. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a fruitful debate today. Now I would like to invite to the stage Ms. Małgorzata Kilian-Grzegorczyk, President of Demagogue Association. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased that today we have space for talking about disinformation at this Internet Governance Forum. It is a very important topic. It influences democracy, our safety and security, our relationships, social relationships. Today, the question whether disinformation and social media influence our life is no longer valid. We know they do. We can see it at every step when we shape political decisions, when we develop our social relationships, and in the context of how we perceive reality today. I can provide an example from a few days ago. We have presidential elections in Romania, and we have pro-Russian politician who is winning the first round of presidential elections. And it is not thanks to traditional media or political debates. It is thanks to TikTok. It was a candidate which was present mainly in TikTok. And we can ask the question whether today is the moment when social media decide on who is going to take the most important decisions in the country. That was an example from Romania, but we also have an example from Moldavia. We have another from Moldova. Here we have Russia's influence strongly visible. Authorities informed everywhere that we had financing of pro-Russian parties. There were cyber attacks and protests which were financed. Disinformation today is a global problem, a very serious problem. I hope that during today's Internet Governance Forum we will be able to discuss certain systemic solutions. Disinformation's goal is to undermine trust in government institutions. It is to introduce conflict within society and weaken democracy. We can't afford it today. Consequently, we need to focus on systemic actions supporting coordination of combating disinformation. Today, we have various organizations, various state institutions which are combating disinformation. And for certain, there is the need for coordination of their activities and for cooperation. The previous speaker points to algorithms, and I also want to draw your attention to these issues. Algorithms and accountability and responsibility of certain platforms owners is out of our reach. There is no transparency yet. Moreover, we don't really see willingness to increase transparency. And algorithms influence decisions, they manipulate information, they polarize our society. The third element is digital and media education at schools. It is a subject that is being discussed, and I hope that those discussions will result in concrete actions. it is not enough to be responsive to certain situations. Many organizations need to make us aware how to protect ourselves against disinformation. International cooperation is also very important. I am very happy that during today's forum we will have the opportunity to discuss issues such as alliances building, cooperation with NATO and with the European Union. In the end, disinformation is like a virus. It infects our minds and it brings our resistance weaker. We have certain vaccinations to it. Knowledge is one vaccination. Cooperation and decisive systemic actions are good vaccines for it. I hope that our future in this digital world will be good because it all depends on our activities and discussions today. Thank you very much for your attention. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to open thematic sessions. The first session will be the session opening IGF Poland, titled Digital Priorities of the Polish Presidency of the Council of the European Union in the first half of 2025. Now I would like to invite speakers and moderator to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for accepting the invitation and coming here despite the weather, or maybe the weather is an opportunity to spend this November rainy day in such a nice group discussing this interesting topic. I would like to thank Deputy Prime Minister and Undersecretary of State Rafał Rosiński from the Ministry of Digital Affairs, Bartosz Dominiak as well, because your presence here is very important. And I say it from the perspective of a person who participated in IGF from its first edition. The presence of the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Digital Affairs here, shows that this issue is important. Managing internet, governing internet becomes more and more important priority in modern times. It is also very important from the point of view of the Polish presidency in the Council of the European Union. We decided to dedicate our first panel discussion to this subject. It is my great pleasure to welcome participants in this panel. I will start to introduce you. Ms. Jolanta Jaworska, Director of Public and Regulatory Affairs, IBM Poland and Baltic countries and Ukraine. And Krzysztof Zielicki, Director of Strategic Development of Cybersecurity, NASK, and as we already know, member of the Governing Board and European Cybersecurity Agency, ENISA. Ms. Małgorzata Krajewska, Chair of the Telecommunications and Digitalization Council of the Leviathan Confederation, at the same time Director of Public Policy and European Affairs, Orange Polska. Director of Cybersecurity AGH, Izabela Arbrecht, and Minister Rafał Rosiński, Undersecretary of State, Ministry of Digital Affairs. And I am observing the monitors on the left and on the right, and we also have Bianka Siwińska, President of the Perspektywy Education Foundation.
Państwa nie zabierają.
So, without further ado, I want that my eminent guests are able to take the floor, and we will start with something very particular. Looking at the challenges that we've all heard about during the opening speeches that the world is facing, the EU is facing, but also Poland, with respect to the internet governance, opportunities and threats, maybe first I will give the floor to you, Mr. Minister. Could you please present to us what are the main digital goals for the Polish presidency? After all, we've heard about a handful of them. We've heard some proposed goals in the opening speeches. So please share with us what's the perspective of your ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation. Mr. Prime Minister, dear guests, well, we heard during the opening speeches what are the suggested goals for the Polish presidency. We heard which topics are central to our ministry. Now, if you asked me to provide kind of a snapshot of these goals, I would say this: cybersecurity and modern technologies. And obviously, you can't discuss the priorities without mentioning these two topics. On the one hand, we observe a technological advancement. However, this advancement should be directed in such a way that we make sure that the security is not compromised. So these two will be our priorities, reflected in the pillars set by the Ministry of Digital Affairs. And these topics will be discussed during the upcoming debates and during the presidency. So, there are 5 basic pillars that really will mark the most important points of the presidency. The first is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is of huge importance. We are attacked day in, day out by hackers. There is war ongoing between Russia and Ukraine. So, Russian and Belarusian attacks targeting critical infrastructure of Poland and certain acts that we need to deal with, that requires our activities. Therefore, we have NASK, the National Research Institute. It's the institution that we oversee, and the goal of this institution is to prevent such threats. Now, the next pillar is AI, of course. AI and modern technologies. This has become really an element of our everyday's life. I feel obliged to mention 2 things which are very characteristic of our government. First of all, we are in charge of preparing certain legislative initiatives. So talking about cybersecurity, we need to have at the back of our head how they will be implemented. I mentioned cybersecurity and the NIS2 directive and the draft act on the national system for cybersecurity. This is one legal act we are working on. And talking about artificial intelligence, we've also proposed a draft act on AI. So we need proper regulations in this area. The point is, obviously, we can't combat certain things, and we don't want to prevent the advancement. The advancement is to serve the humanity. And yet, we need to make sure that we have proper security and that we need robust framework. The next pillar that will be our goal during presidency is something called digital diplomacy and internet governance. Cooperation under digital diplomacy between individual EU states, but also with third countries, will be of great importance. We need to develop a framework for solutions in this regard. Now, talking about digitization, let's never forget about the future of the telecoms market, 5G, broadband internet, so that the white spots which we still observe on the territory of Poland will be finally deleted. Any measures taken by the Ministry of Digital Affairs, they are aimed at combating such barriers so that every citizen of our country can take advantage of the technological advancement. And the final, fifth pillar is digital partnership and transatlantic ties. So, in fact, this is about the cooperation of the EU with the United States and beyond. In this area, we've been quite active. This year, on behalf of Prime Minister and Minister of Digital Affairs, Mr. Krzysztof Gawkowski, I signed an MOU with the United States, the Department for Internal Affairs and Security. And the point of this MOU is to exchange information with respect to cybersecurity and new technologies. It's really central to have such cooperation in place with our strategic partner. So looking at all of these priorities, we do hope they will make a contribution in making Poland a significant state. And we hope our presidency will be well remembered also by other states. Thank you very much, Minister. So, having heard your statement and Mr. Gawkowski's before, it seems that priority number one for Poland will be cybersecurity. So let me move on directly to Madam Albrecht with the next question. Looking at the challenges that we mentioned today, that is cyber threats, for example, what's your take? How should Poland react and what Poland should propose to other member states? How can we make sure in a solidary fashion that we can program our reactions to the existing threats to cybersecurity? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the question, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this central discussion, which is so topical these days. Well, Mr. Rosiński, Vice Minister, said a lot about this. The idea of coming up with a European Digital Fund is of fundamental importance. I'm sure it's quite necessary, in fact, if you look at the dynamic of cyber threats. Also, Jowita mentioned the fact that we need to have very clear reactions. So that means we should map all the sectors which are especially susceptible to cyber attacks. Vis-à-vis the priorities, cybersecurity and new technologies, well, I would say the following. In fact, we have a sector where these two topics, cybersecurity and the development of new technologies, coexist and are interdependent. And I mean by that research and development and education. In fact, these two are mostly targeted by any cyber threats. And I'd like to present you with some figures, because they are quite alarming. One of the recent reports by Checkpoint suggests that in Q3, the number of cyber threats globally reached the highest numbers in history. 75% increase rate as compared to Q3 2023. These statistics are really alarming, especially when it comes to the education and research sector. This was mostly targeted. 3,800 attacks per week statistically. And to compare, the government and military and the healthcare sector were attacked on average 2,200 times per week. So that means our research and education sector faces a real challenge. I welcome that we have come to realize that as a state and as the European Union. We are a bit backwarded, to put it very delicately, when it comes to the development of new technologies. AI, quantum computers, biotechnology, and many other areas that have been defined as breakthrough technologies should be an area where we really must be very active. This is where we are trying to come up with innovation ecosystems and support instruments that would foster a better development of these technologies. If we fail to make sure at the same time that we will ensure security of scientific outcomes and innovations, then it won't not only be a zero-sum game, but a non-zero-sum game. And so we will lose and they will win. And by them, I mean our enemies that target us with their attacks, engaging cyber criminals in more and more professional fashion. They act like multinational corporations. Apart from that, individual countries come up with ecosystems that merge actors and skills with respect to cybersecurity, so that cyber attacks can be orchestrated in a growing scale vis-à-vis other states. So at this point, on the one hand, we try to support new technologies, but on the other hand, institutions, organizations that create them are more and more frequently those institutions that become victims of cyber threats themselves. So I believe one of the priorities of the Polish presidency could be increasing cyber resilience and cyber security in the education and research sector. In May 2024, during the Belgian presidency's recommendations were compiled by the Council of the European Union. In these recommendations, hybrid threats have been thematized that target scientific and education sector. And in the recommendations, one can read also some ideas with respect to cyber security on how we can increase our resilience. I believe that's an area where Poland, during our presidency, should be very active in. We should come up with some practical activities that could be undertaken so that universities have more security. In line with the directive NIS2 and IS2, some universities could be acknowledged as critical service operators. But this is not an assumption yet. This will be bound to the decision of individual member states. So we need to ensure that we support those legislative measures that the requirements regarding universities will be higher. At the same time, we must come up with support mechanisms for universities so that cybersecurity is possible. Right now, this year in Poland, quite a lot of funding from the Ministry of Education, of Higher Education, has been directed to NIS2 implementation. But these are ad hoc measures. They are not sufficient. Therefore, the European Cybersecurity Fund could address that problem and could come up with some systemic solutions also with respect to funding the challenge, so that in the long run we can make sure that we have cybersecurity and cyber resilience in this crucial sector. And let me reiterate, this sector not only creates the technologies which are the driving wheel of our economic development and growth, but also we make sure that the state is secure. After all, breakthrough technologies are more and more frequently used to enhance states' geopolitical standing. Take Ukrainian war as an example, where they are engaged more and more frequently for defensive measures. So I think we are at a time in history where we need to make sure that the protection of such technologies directly is also related with building national security.
Ta perspektywa.
Thank you very much for what you have said. This perspective of recognizing cyber threats by the scientific sector is very important, and I'm very happy that it was spoken up here because it's very important. Yes, it's for certain the sector which today it's under attack, we might say. Thank you, Director, for for the information provided to us. And Director Silicki, I would like to ask you for several words or several sentences about at the European Union scale. How can we face such challenges? How to coordinate European Union measures? How to foster mutual support among European Union members in terms of protection of critical infrastructure? We protect it at the European Union level, at national level, and how do we support such measures through European Union instruments or within European Union policies? And how Polish presidency can work here? Thank you very much for this question, and thank you for the invitation to this discussion. Much has already been said about challenges, about opportunities, priorities, and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is our priority, and I am very happy it is. However, when we dive into details, we have to admit that we need to pinpoint the starting point, where to start our work. We have half a year to promote our approach, show it as good in the European Union. But in order to succeed, we need to focus on certain priorities within cybersecurity. It would be great to be able to provide an answer, clear answer to this question. Strategic approach, operational approach within European Union cooperation can be shown as a priority in cybersecurity, which is Blueprint from 2017. That is the example of this approach. Blueprint from 2017 is a document recommending creation of a system of cooperation at the European Union level in every member state, which can be able to respond and react to certain critical situations in cybersecurity. We should also mention one more term, which is silos. We are talking about key services operators here. We need to be aware that legislation is very fragmented here. We need another ambitious goal of changing the perspective, because every threat, hybrid threat, cybersecurity threat, it moves beyond the silos I have mentioned, and it gets into certain sectors, be it critical infrastructure or not. Some services are critical and some are not, and they are all targeted. We have a certain landscape of threats here. In 2017 we had this blueprint, and now it's 2025, and right now our well-announced goal is to update this document. Much has happened since the beginning of drafting this document. For example, war in Ukraine started. Unfortunately, right now we perceive certain area where we have this hybrid war and war in digital space. For us, it is a red light because now we can see that we need certain mechanisms of cooperation among member states and among the European Union institutions dealing in crisis management and cybersecurity. We need to develop effective and efficient cooperation mechanisms. We want them to be successful faced with certain threats, cyber threats. We do not have such efficient mechanisms right now. We want to develop them in order to be well prepared for certain digital emergency. And the document dating back to 2017 is a very good document to look at. During our presidency in the Council of the European Union, we will discuss this document and we will look at how to implement the certain points of this document. When we look at this regulatory and legal domain, we see that there are two main threats. First, and two main roads. First is critical infrastructure, the second is digital services. I have already mentioned that this type of way of thinking for me is strategically inadmissible, unacceptable. Much depends on how we can foresee certain scenarios of risk scenarios concerning critical infrastructure, critical areas are very important for us to foresee. There is one more important European Union perspective which I want to mention. This is an idea coming from Poland. After the outbreak of war in Ukraine, Poland submitted a need for developing risk scenarios at the European Union level. We should foresee such risks. There are, of course, threat scenarios in every member state, which is they are getting prepared for certain cyber threats and cyber attacks, but we have to try to foresee what may really happen because all the sectors are interlinked. Health, power sector, scientific research sector, which is not adequately appreciated faced with the risks and threats they face. In this context, it is imperative to try to imagine what may happen if we have cyber attacks here. All of a sudden in the European Union we have two initiatives working on the same domain. I was happy that this approach was so widely approved. There are two groups working on risk scenarios, and in both all member states are committed to work. Around 3 months ago, they decided to combine those two working groups and to work jointly on those topics. So you can see that many activities are being done, but in the way the silos are built. So there's no communication between them and it's a bit fragmented. Sometimes it seems that it's enough to raise your voice and say you should cooperate. Maybe that would be a simple solution, but it all boils down to trust among partners. They need to want to talk together. It is important in cybersecurity. Krzysztof, thank you very much. What you have said pointed to the priorities in our presidency in the Council of the European Union, and I think that this topic should make us work together. It is a very important perspective in cybersecurity domain. It is important to move out of this silos work. We are here at the Internet Governance Forum, and we have the president here remotely participating in our meeting. Those of you who are young might not remember that we had a round of negotiation in Tunis which created IGF. First IGF was in Athens in 2006, and artificial intelligence was not discussed there at all. Some were just mentioned it shyly in terms of futuristic technologies. However, today AI becomes our everyday reality. There are AI tools which are in private use, in public use. There are countries when we already have court verdicts pronounced with the use of AI. AI is getting deeper and deeper into our lives. Now I would like to ask you, Bianca, from your perspective of the Perspective Education Foundation, how should we educate ourselves and how should we educate society in the area of artificial intelligence? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am present here remotely. I couldn't be present in person. Can you hear me well? Yes, we can hear you. I believe that the question concerning education in the area of artificial intelligence is very up to date. Artificial intelligence becomes a very important element of our everyday lives. But we need to have a general view of the situation. We need to ask the question, how should we learn nowadays? The present attitude, which I should say is not fully accepting that the world has changed. It's present at primary schools and also at sometimes at universities, will not last long. Of course, we can focus on following the activities and we can focus on who and where used ChatGPT. We can put bans and prohibitions on using ChatGPT in university work, but we can also make a bit more difficult step forward, which is think over the whole system of education with the presence of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is on one hand technology, but on the other hand it is our new approach to technology. It's a new economy. How can we cope with that? It seems that what we used to define as our goal of educational process has changed. We used to want to educate a person who is knowledgeable, who has critical approach to information, who knows a lot of things. Right now, the speed of education, the speed of access to various facts is unimaginable. And we cannot compete with this, because we will never, the former manner of education will never win with the speed of getting facts. Right now we have all the facts at our hands. Previously we didn't have this access to facts. In order to be able to draw certain conclusions, we had to rely on what we had in our heads in terms of facts and information. Right now, access to facts is much faster, and we should change the paradigm of education. This change is very deep. At this point, question arises, and the question is, are we ready? And other questions are, why we educate young people? Why do we give them so many tasks related to collecting information? We put immense burden on young people from primary school up to universities. Young people do things which we weren't capable to do when we were at universities. And we give them all those tasks because we want to optimize their operational skills. We want to increase efficiency of our students. We want to increase the number of neurons in their brains. And the question is, how can we do it with the use of AI tools in a situation where traditional education, traditional way of learning makes no sense anymore?
So you could have a following take where there are two parallel worlds. In the first one, no AI, you need to go through everything from scratch. Whereas in the other one, you can use AI to develop your brain. As Jovita said in the beginning, this is no longer a question on who will be replaced by AI. However, having said that, a month ago, I saw this huge advertising slogan, "Stop hiring humans." Well, that was quite telling. That was in the US at a Tech Disrupt conference. That was really quite a shocking thing. What I think we should be thinking about is not what AI is going to deprive us from, but rather what can we do with AI when we join our forces. There will be a very new skill, a skill that we need to learn at school, but also in our professional lives. So, I mean, we need to master cooperation. Cooperation with AI. I think a lot will change in that regard. Since studies and experiments suggest that AI merged with a human being can give even better outcomes, that means it is worthwhile working on that interface between humans and AI in the world of education. This is how we should be proposing the new lessons. This will no longer be just coding. It will be a different type of activity. No longer project work, but project work including AI agents, the agents from the other world. And on top of that, I must say that apart from AI, another breakthrough technology are quantum technologies. That's the timing right now to introduce that piece into education so that on IT and other or maths classes, teachers teach about the evolution of computers. So today's smartphone is not the end of that development. Rather, we will shift more and more into the technology of quantum computers. And this is an amazing field that requires deeper research. In the future, we will need loads of specialists in this area. Therefore, I am very happy about the direction that the Polish state has set in terms of digital affairs. I remember back in the days 1 year ago when the strategy was being selected for the presidency. That was a document by Minister Sanderski and Minister Gawkowski with respect to the technological development of Poland. And even then, they already mentioned quantum technologies and education in that area. To introduce the topic of quantum technology to education, and that, to me, seemed like very future-oriented. I mean, so far, this is not happening. this has not been happening. We keep discussing these topics. We keep working on the future curriculum that will start from 2026, but it's not there yet. It's actually my dream that every person can be in touch with a quantum computer, because quantum computers will be our future, and when joined with AI, will totally change the rules of the game. Also, an interaction with a quantum computer will help you understand that these are just tools. Starting from small or big counting machines, computing devices, chips, and ending with this, which is behind my back, and it's a quantum computer. All of them are just functionalities, and it's up to us, the people, to create it, to make the meaning of it, and this is still very much dependent on us. Thank you very much, Bianca, for your statement. And by the way, you said that everything depends on us. Luckily, it's still the case in the area of law. So if you allow me, I'd like to ask the next question to Jolanta Jaworska. So talking about law in the area of digital affairs, what are the prospects of entities that are subject by that digital law? What are the challenges that such entities face with implementation of this law? And since you represent IBM, what do you think? What steps should be taken to make sure that we have a safer regulatory framework to foster digital progress and adoption of new technologies? Please share some tips with us for the legislators in Poland and in Europe. Thank you very much. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Well, if you talk about regulations, I guess each of the speakers before me mentioned that topic. Prime Minister, Minister, Jowita, and others. And Krzysztof was very direct about it. And by the way, I not only represent IBM here, but I want to speak on behalf of a larger community. That is the Union of Digital Technologies Employers, Leviathan. I'm very happy that Mario Draghi actually said the same thing. If you listened to his speech, or if you read at least part of his report, because the report is really huge, but it's a great compilation of knowledge. And he said the nutshell of that report in his statement to the European Parliament. In the business world, we all agree. He talked about very extensive digital regulations, about silo thinking, which is still observable in that area, and I think Krzysztof also pointed this out, very rightly so. Also, Mario Draghi claimed that there was no single way of implementing these policies, even in the EU states. I mean, it was so common in previous years that we as businesses, we asked state administration that if directives are to be implemented, then please let's implement it in the way they are designed without adding any local input. Because when we do it, and I guess I don't need to explain that to all of you active in Poland and maybe wishing to act in other countries, this creates further barriers. We want to spend the money that we have at our disposal for IT guys and not for lawyers, with all due respect. I mean, I love lawyers, I love working with them. So we are not saying that we don't need regulations. We obviously do. And at the same time, they should motivate, they should help. This month, I had a meeting with an American counterpart, and she told me what actions they undertook. And I said, so you don't have any hard law? No, we just have frameworks. So I asked, okay, so what about companies, not only American ones, operating in the American market? How do you make sure that they follow these legal frameworks? Because certain consequences or certain implications of digital regulations are quite serious. So I'm not saying nobody, but companies really are very cautious before making any attempt to take actions that could be problematic to citizens, to end consumers, whether it's John Smith or whether it's another company. I mean, this is common knowledge. We don't want to have extensive regulations because they really pose issues to the small and medium-sized companies. And frequently that means that startups, and I could mention several of them that were launched here in Poland, well, suddenly they moved their headquarters elsewhere, to the US, not necessarily in the sunny California. So what we advocate for is that we halt for a moment, that we are cautious. I very welcome the fact that the Polish presidency is planning to focus on joint implementation. Implementation that will be agreed with other EU states. Last week, I went to Digital Summit in Tallinn, and the ministers from different countries that attended that meeting, including Estonia, which, as you know, for many countries is a true benchmark. So yes, we know what AI Act is all about, but how do you do it in practice? Because we thought that maybe we could just cherry pick. Well, I think it's a perfect opportunity to discuss all of these topics during our presidency. Therefore, we have the ambition to be the most innovative country. And yet, Estonian colleagues tell us they want to be the first AI state, or Ukraine wants to be the first AI state as well. And there are also many other contenders. So that means we are not left alone. And this is great. If countries such as Estonia or Ukraine, Denmark, Nordics, well, maybe let's not compete in the same areas, but rather, referring to Mario Draghi, let's try to take a joint action. I know it's not easy, because we all have our own ambitions. Everyone wants to be first. But could we have these ambitions? And if we look at the definitions of the European diplomacy in digital affairs, it says that Europe should be the most digital continent. Well, if that's the case, why not join the forces? I know it's not easy, but I think companies have been hit really hard. And so they are ready to help, to cooperate, looking at ethical motivations and the values. We all know that regulations are important, but let's make sure that the best projects, even though I represent an American companies, that the best projects are created in Poland or in Europe. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, madam. So talking about Mario Draghi's report, we would like to organize one such an event, reading out loud the report of Mario Draghi. That would take several days, but then I'm sure everyone would know very well the diagnosis that he proposes, and we are going to refer to it in the upcoming months. So yes, Draghi's report, thank you very much for mentioning that, Jola. I guess it's a great departure point to engage in a conversation about different challenges in the area of digitization for Europe. One of the challenges that Minister Rosiński mentioned was also related to telecoms. So, if possible, Małgorzata, you are actually also president of the board at Leviathan, the board for telecommunications and digitization. You also represent Orange as head of department. From your perspective, tell us, please, what challenges you think the telecoms market faces in the EU at the brink of the Polish presidency in the EU, and what changes in law should be introduced so that this telecoms market, also looking at what Mr. Minister mentioned, which is our 5G network development plans, to carry them out in an easier way in the EU?
Tak, dziękuję.
Thank you, Rafał, for your invitation, and thank you for this question. You have said that internet is working, and we are lucky it does. It seems obvious, but it is not. The Deputy Prime Minister said that we might have problems with water, with power systems, with transportation, and we all take it all for granted. We take it for granted that we have this connectivity. And Director Silicki talked about critical infrastructure, irrespective of how we categorize it according to legal terminology, which is secondary here. But without it, we will not have digital economy, we have reduced educational opportunities, and so on and so forth. I believe that for a longer time, we are in permanent stress test. We've had COVID-19 pandemics, now we have war, floods, climate crisis, and we have to, in a way, get used to it. We have to tame this situation because it is going to be a permanent element of our daily lives. And I encourage you to this mental exercise to visualize a situation where connectivity is broken and you cannot use your smartphone to correct yourself when you want to quote certain data. For example, today during this discussion, you cannot have access to accent to any other newspaper. Let's make one step forward. Lack of power, lack of electricity. We can't imagine our lives without it. I do not want to share with you this catastrophic vision. However, these are examples which we witnessed to a smaller extent in flooded areas in Poland. Connectivity was broken, power lines were broken. If power lines are broken, after some time connectivity is broken, and in the end there's nothing. The access is broken, and we forget about the importance of ICT infrastructure, telecom infrastructure, and we as a country in the European Union cannot forget this. What is this infrastructure built on? We are all users and consumers of telecom services, and when we go back, we felt that they used to cost some money, and right now this cost is very small. Those services are very cheap. It stems from regulatory intervention, because it liberalized this market strongly. In Poland, Polish telecoms market is one of the most competitive in Europe, and telecom services in Poland are cheapest in Europe. We as consumers benefit from this, but it translates into less money into infrastructural investments, and infrastructure is the basis for all that we are discussing today. It is one of the challenges of telecommunications system today. Regulatory intervention, which had its important role at certain stage of development of this market, combating monopolies, for example, didn't take into consideration negative consequences we are facing today. Namely, we have less and less money for infrastructural investments, and this is the backbone of the whole system. This is one of the main challenges we perceive, we notice. I agree with Director Zieliński strongly that we should look at this infrastructure horizontally, and I'm also thinking about power infrastructure. Deputy Prime Minister said that during the presidency of Poland in the Council of the European Union, we want to establish cybersecurity fund. We have already encouraged many entities to create a resilience fund. Resilience is a term which covers many more areas. Cybersecurity is part of resilience. We want to have a resilience fund covering also infrastructure. When we talk about regulations, it is important, and I talk about it because our market is very regulated, very strongly regulated. And I want to tell you that some time ago the European Commission established a working group concerning ICT infrastructure security, focusing undersea, deep sea cables. We all follow all sorts of incidents in media, and we believe that this subject is ultra important. We need to look into underwater sea infrastructure, but we should not ignore land infrastructure. And I say it from the point of view of how Poland is located geopolitically. We already notice certain infrastructure attacks. It is pure devastation, but there are also hybrid incidents. Moreover, there are incidents which result from disinformation, and I am very happy that the president of the Demagogue Association is here, because together we are cooperating to combat disinformation leading to ICT infrastructure devastation. Sometimes such devastation results from such messages as 5G kills, 5G caused floods. We have encountered such messages. Land infrastructure should also be in the center of the European Union interest. And we appeal to the director, to the deputy prime minister, to raise this subject in their meetings with the European Commission. We think that there are going to be many partners for discussion from various countries. Jola mentioned Draghi report. We identify with it strongly. We used to have letter report, and I believe that the Polish presidency is a great opportunity to benefit from a president of Finland who talked about security and readiness, and he also mentioned infrastructure there. This is the part we cannot ignore. I would also like to shed some light on the electricity part. When we had flood in Poland, power lines were broken. Our telecoms infrastructure is prepared for certain brownouts, but we have some certain restricted in time capacities. The infrastructure has been constructed for time of peace. And this is a public challenge. We have to prepare for times other than peace, for emergency times, and we should dedicate certain amount of money to this preparation. And we discuss this context because we cooperate with the power sector facing enormous transformational challenges. It is related to our infrastructure as well. And I also appeal to the ministry to show this issue concerning infrastructure. I believe that Spain, richer with its experience, will be interested to talk about it. Prime Minister Tusk's visit is also going to be about security to a broad extent. It is one of national challenges, but it is also the challenge that is inscribed in the whole European Union situation. The Draghi report is a report on which we can construe our own story. Letta, Draghi in Brussels are known by heart. And we know that competitiveness is very important, but security cannot be forgotten here. I know that time is running, but I also want to mention regulations. As a telecom sector, we are the usual suspect. We are the easiest to regulate. We have many regulations. It's obvious how to regulate our sector. On the market, we already have certain companies and operators who offer substitute services, but they are much younger than we are. And we appeal and speak the same what Ursula von der Leyen said. We need to have revision of regulatory burdens. We should slow down and look at what we have and what we need. We need to make sure that regulations are the same for every operator. On one hand, we have geographical patchwork. Everybody would like to have the gold plating, adding certain local licencia poetica. On the other hand, we have also the patchwork in the world of various operators serving the same services and being regulated in various ways. We as telecom face the fact that somebody says that we are not innovative enough. On the other hand, we cannot benefit from opportunities from non-regulated sectors. So the regulatory agenda should be there. The head of the commission worried me a little because she said that we are going to offer legislatory package. So maybe we will produce something that should be changed, but with even more regulation. I wouldn't like to go this way. When we want to simplify regulation, we shouldn't create new regulation. I know that is a trap which we often fall into, but our Deputy Prime Minister and our Prime Minister are our eyes and our voice in the European Commission. I would like to ask you to pay attention to this situation, because further regulatory provisions bring further costs, and the money should be put aside to development of infrastructure. Sometimes money is burnt on solutions which are not effective or which are beneficial only for a very small group of operators, small group of people. Sometimes they have to be adjusted to other regulation, and it is a way nowhere. We need regulations which is smart and well adjusted to our situation. I think that my time is up. Thank you. So I understand that we need smart regulation, but human regulation. So the value of creating regulations should be put to people, not to AI. Well, we may benefit from AI at creating new regulation, but the conceptual part should be human-centric, because the Ambitious of Digital Diplomacy also mentions this. Thank you very much for your voice. We would love to discuss more digital diplomacy. Prime Minister has already mentioned the digital diplomacy and creating digital partnership as one of the goals of our presidency. However, our time is up and we are restricted here, we are limited here in terms of time. There is also internet transmission of our debate, and there is also interpretation of this debate. We are going to have the presidency in the Council of the European Union, and we are ahead of Internet Governance Forum. And the Deputy Prime Minister offered the opening remarks, and we want to reach with our message to all listeners which are non-speakers, so all of those who are listening to our debate in English are greeted by me today. We care about the fact that you understand us as well. We can also discuss all those topics behind the scenes. What is also important is the electoral result in the US. We want to have further transatlantic partnership and develop strategic and digital partnerships of the European Union and the whole world. So thank you very much for your attention. For me, it was a very inspiring panel. And I saw here many important elements mentioned, and there are 3 reports which should be read by all of us, 3 reports which were mentioned here. For further autumn evenings, this is a very good book to read, and we should program ourselves for the coming years and months according to the priorities we have mentioned here, which were also mentioned by our Deputy Prime Minister and by Rafał Rosiński. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for your participation in this discussion here. We are ahead of a coffee break, and I will introduce Viktor Skwarek, Department of International Cooperation in the Ministry of Digital Affairs. Viktor, please provide further information for our organization. Ladies and gentlemen, the next session will start at 11:15. So we are coming back here at 11:15, and now it's time for lunch break. Thank you very much for your attention.